Hi. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
It's nice to
So
see you.
it's nice to see you as well, internet friends.
Yeah.
Um, so this is our fifth niche conversation. Today I am joined by Caroline Evans Abbott. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jessica DeWitt, one of the editors here at NiCHE. So I want to invite Caroline to tell us more about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Caroline. Hi, and thank you for having me today. It's really nice to finally talk to you face to face after connecting online for a while. I'm a 2019 graduate of the University of Glasgow. I finished my MRes in essentially genre gaps in narrative framing in Victorian Gothic horror, which is a
Mhm.
far cry-ish from the environmental humanities, but I've been kind of coming toward that direction more and more as I kind of find my own way after finishing.
Mhm.
So prior to Glasgow University, I worked as a tutor at the Yochadihi Winton Nation in Northern California, which was wonderful, and I miss my kids dearly. And I'm currently kind of doing my own thing as, I guess, an independent researcher as I explore and find my own little direction. And I guess you could say niche, but I think I already made that joke once. So,
It's a good joke.
okay,
We
good.
we use it a lot.
I bet you do.
It can be
Yeah.
used in a lot of ways. So, today I invited you to talk to me because you wrote an essay for us called "COVID Landscapes and Lockdown: Kyriarchy, Unsettling Environmental Prose, and Pandemic as Time for Authorial Reflection." And so I'd like to start our conversation off by just, can you tell us what Kyriarchy is and what a kyriarchal system is?
Absolutely. I can absolutely do my best. The term was coined originally. Sorry, I think my phone glitched out there for a second. Is everything
No,
okay on
that's
your
okay.
end? Let me just
Yes,
see if
I
I
can hear
can
you again.
adjust that. Okay, sorry about that. I had to plug in
No
the
worries.
reserve power. Anyway, it's a complex term that Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza coined in the 90s. She's considered a
Mhm.
radical feminist, but I think more and more as we explore feminist scholarship, what we call radical is really not quite so radical as it is just often the truth, in my opinion. But it has its roots in the Greek word kyrios, which is lord or master. And
Mhm.
essentially, in recent months, it's risen to a really interesting place in the cultural lexicon as we continue to have conversations about race and gender and culture of global oppression. In its original incarnation, she uses the term to describe her theory that there are global systems of domination and oppression and submission, and that they interlock and they kind of shape one another's development. And I guess that's a very abstract way to explain it, but it has entered our vernacular as far as social reform goes.
Mhm.
And it both presents as a means to condense these kind of complex machinations and to explore those intricacies. So its usefulness to us comes through by nature of the fact that it is this really highly intersectional thing,
Mhm.
concept. And a kyriarchal system, in my view, it's developing based on our modern interpretations of it. But I think the unique thing about our definition of a kyriarchal system, as it stands now, with additional academic discourse and with non-academic conversations using the term, is that it doesn't collect all of these social wounds into one kind of lump sum and leave it at that. It's looking at them
Mhm.
as a group of these interlocking parts, and it acknowledges also that those systems rely on the maintenance of a subordinate class by those interlocking systems. So if we branch from the original incarnation of what was always this really intersectional concept, and we consider a system that is kyriarchal and we apply it to our world, it's kind of an acknowledgement of all of these contingencies together,
Mhm.
which is where I think it's most useful. I don't know if I did a perfect job there, but I tried my best.
No, that's really great. And I love the idea of that the definition isn't set. It's
Yeah.
still in motion, it's dynamic. And I think a lot of terms are that way, and we want that like
Yeah.
concrete idea of what something is, and it's not there. For myself, I originally encountered the term kyriarchy when I subscribed to the podcast Kicking the Kyriarchy, which is a British podcast. And I have to admit that most of the time when I've encountered the term, it's been in a British or UK context. So it's interesting that you have lived over there.
Yes.
And I wonder if it is more popular and than in North America. But
I think
I,
it's starting to kind of make its way over, but I have noticed
yeah.
the same thing, that there's this, I guess, normalization of these radical terms in the
Hmm.
culture over there, or the subcultures a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I hope that we start seeing it inject into particularly US and Canadian politics too.
Hmm.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting. Sorry.
No, it's good. So how can we apply this term of Kyriarchy to the environmental humanities? How does it help us understand or work through the work that we do?
So I'm so new to the environmental humanities, and I'm so new to academia in general, that I feel I would really hugely benefit from anybody who has a source that they want to throw at me after this. That would be great. But I'm going to make another clumsy analogy in my attempt to describe this. If we look at Kyriarchy as that kind of interlocking system of parts, and we look at this human biome of interlocking histories that we explore in environmental humanities, in eco-criticism, in environmental history, we are a field which has roundly considered human engagements with the natural world. And it's always done this very intersectionally, from the earliest pieces of eco-critical and environmental work that branched into the humanities. One of the most prevalent rising subfields in the environmental humanities, or at least that I've noticed as someone who's coming to it from a kind of new place, is that we have a tremendous surge in gender research and environment, which is incredibly helpful. So there is that one big thing. Our field is so constantly exploring where the human world and the natural world, where that line falls, or if it exists at all. And we talk so much about geologic time in a lot of Anthropocene studies. I think it comes up a fair bit. So if we can answer some of the problems that we have with a term that is essentially a verbal vehicle to explore these interlocking methods by which humanity warps, shapes, interacts with nature, I think that we arrive at a place where we're acknowledging this intersectionality and we're moving forward with it, with groundwork that kind of helps us look at the tracks. So to include Kyriarchy in environmental humanities conversations, it's an acknowledgement of the existence of more than one system of oppression that we work with. We would never look at the logging trade in Canada as just a vehicle of imperialism or just a vehicle of supply. We would look at the reasons why. We would look at the supply chains. We would look at the people and the civilizations that were fed by those decisions. And so for me, I guess it represents an acknowledgement that this is what's kind of central to the success of the field. We have this term that is organizing the human systems that we're looking at as shaping the natural ones. And we look at the natural ones so intricately that it just feels natural to look at the human ones in such an intersectional way too, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's only a few of the reasons, I think.
No, I love that. I mean, that's why I love studying the environment, is that it enables me to study everything else.
Yeah.
And I also, going back to the niche metaphor, I love thinking of human-based society in terms of ecology. And I think that when we think of these intersectionalities and hierarchical systems, it's kind of looking at ecological systems in some ways, social ecological systems. So, um, in your own work, one of the projects that you highlighted in your post was that you have restored a 19th century camera, which I also have been keeping tabs on Instagram. It's very interesting. Your photography is fantastic.
Thank you.
And I wonder if you want to tell us more about this project
I'd
and
love
how
to.
you see it relating to Kyriarchy.
Yeah, I would love to. I have the camera here, and touch wood, it keeps together for this, because I have had moments in this process where we've fixed something, and then there's been that moment of, oh look, it finally works, and then something just falls apart. So touch wood, everything goes fine here, but I'm not going to do anything fancy with it, but just so you can see, there's our friend.
Oh, gorgeous. Where did you get it? Where did you find it?
Scavenging for really old camera parts is kind of um, eBay, wherever corner of the internet is selling something that might possibly be the thing you're looking for.
Mm.
It's kind of like building a car, but a really, really old one that the parts are scattered everywhere. I've been really lucky to find machines that mostly are okay. There was one, I have two of them now, and one of them is still in need of repair. But it
Mhm.
is essentially a game of chance and looking at the right time in the right place and budgeting money really wisely because this can get expensive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the project, if this camera stays together, I've really been focused on this particular camera model, which I guess seems pedantic, but it fell at such a really interesting time in photographic history, and I promise there's a point. It's an 1897 Kodak number 4. And the reason that it's such an interesting model is that this was the last model that Kodak ever made that has the wood. You can see this is mahogany. It's a frame of mahogany, and then this is brass. And post the 1897, Kodak started to realize that as a bicycle camera, which this is, that's kind of cumbersome. And carrying that thing around is, you could do much better with the space and the materials, and you could do it more cheaply. So it falls at this interesting point where media like this, photographic media, is becoming accessible to the middle class for the first time. And this was sort of the falling off point where it was past this point. I believe the parts were nickel, tin, and seal leather, if I'm correct. I could be mistaking the leather, but so it's this dividing line between class, which I also can connect back to Kyriarchy, where you have that contingency that Kyriarchal systems exist based on the oppression of a subordinate class that has to stay there in order for it to work. Obviously, most of the people who would have been going around on bicycles taking pictures of the North American continent's beautiful landscapes would, for the most part, be men who would go around from a decent background and document nature. It became this new frontier for them. They were able to explore the media easily and fluidly and accessibly. And so there were a few moments along this that I guess I kind of developed the idea from, but there was something that felt really right about taking a machine that women and femmes and all of the identities that were oppressed by the Kyriarchal systems shaping the landscape at that time wouldn't have been able to use a lens for. There are so few surviving examples of female photography that got out there and did it because it just wasn't feasible. You have people like Alice Mary Hughes in London, who was a studio photographer, but she was very, very elite and she only did very fashionable shoots. You have Anna Atkins with the cyanotypes. So you are seeing it, but these bodies, especially non-middle class, non-upper class femme bodies, were shaping the landscape amid the Kyriarchal sort of footprint that's starting to come in and really dominate the area for capitalistic means. So I guess that's kind of where it started, and I've been focused so much on restoring it and learning that I haven't quite gotten out there to do, a succinct list of places, but I do have one working in progress, and I hope if this holds, then we're going to go and start doing that soon because I I think it's in decent enough shape now where I can get out there and start documenting. So that's sort of where it started and where it is now.
Cool. I love it.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, I really loved your like urban oasis as well that you documented this
Oh,
past year, and
thanks.
um, yeah, your captions are always brilliant, and you're a brilliant
Well, so are
individual.
yours. So are you.
And
Thank you.
I want to
That's high
thank
praise.
you for joining me today and
Thank you.
continuing to
This has
do this.
been fun. And thank It's
You
so
did
good to
really
see
well.
you.
You as well. Okay, take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye.